CGQ Plus.
So usually when people go to clean their games, especially Nintendo games, which are obviously more prone to having issues when they're dirty, they reach for a Q-tip and some rubbing alcohol and just, rub the contacts until the Q-tip's not dirty anymore. And then generally the game plays. At some point, I came across a new method. I did not come up with this method, but I don't remember where I found out about it, that instead of using Q-tips, uses a white plastic eraser. So it's sort of a dry method, although there's a sort of a finishing step that's optional that uses a chemical that I'll show you in a second. So the only difference with using this method is that you do have to open up your games. And to do that, for the vast majority of games, you're going to need some security bits, or what are commonly called game bits. And these are something you can just get off of Amazon. And they really come one of two ways. You can either get them as complete tools, meaning that they have handles on them already and are just sort of like normal screwdrivers, or you can get just the bits themselves like that. And those are bits that you would just stick into a bit driver that you likely already have around the house. And so, there you go. So if you already have a bit driver, like I have this one that I just keep in the house in a toolbox. And but this also means that you can just have other bits, like you can just buy a little bit set. Because as you'll see in a minute, there are some games that just use a standard Phillips head screwdriver to get open. Or some of the old Nintendo games, like the 5-screw Nintendo games, actually just use a small slotted screwdriver. So that's something that you'll want to keep around as well. Again, you can just get those off of Amazon. You can spend about $5 for the game bits. Or if you want a more complete tool set, you can get one for like 10 or $11. You can get tool sets that come with all kinds of stuff, so that you have what you need to even replace a screen, for instance, on a handheld. And then the last thing that this is very optional, because it's a little bit pricey. This would be the most pricey part of the whole process. Is you can get something called DeoxIT, and this video is not sponsored by DeoxIT. I just like their product. And what I get this D100L solution. It comes in this little bottle that is very similar to like a nail polish bottle. So it's got the little brush applicator on there. And this is what I do after the eraser. And I'll show that, is I brush this on the contacts and then wipe it off. It says on here, dissolves corrosion, improves contact, and protects surfaces. So I like that. They also make another one. They have this DeoxIT Gold, which is supposed to be like a finishing step, but I don't know, this one seems kind of like, somebody else can tell me different. This kind of seems like snake oil to me. I only have it because these came as a set, but you can get this bottle by itself for $20, which is a lot, but you can see how much is still in the bottle, and I've been working on this bottle for close to 10 years, I would say, maybe 8 years. So really one bottle is like a lifetime supply. And especially for games that you cannot reasonably open without damaging the label, like Atari games, something like DeoxIT's going to do a better job than alcohol, but alcohol also works. Nothing I'm saying today is to deride the rubbing alcohol method. Like, that totally works, and if it's fine for you, then you should do that. And I know there's also been a lot of scuttlebutt and some, maybe a little bit of drama on like Twitter and whatnot a while back about using something like Brasso. And the only thing I would say about something like that is that in the vast majority of cases, it's just not necessary. Brasso is an abrasive cleaner for polishing metal. And if you've got a game that actually does have like corrosion on it, where the method I'm going to show you does not remove the corrosion, then absolutely you're going to have to use something like Brasso. But just for everyday cleaning, like you went out to the game stores or the thrift stores or whatever, and you brought home a pile of games, the method I'm going to show you is probably going to work for all of them. And it's only going to be like every once in a blue moon that you're going to come across a game where you do this and the game still won't load, and you know it's not your system because you know you've done a good job of cleaning up your system. For the white plastic eraser itself, I find the prices on Amazon are not very competitive. Usually with little stuff like this, Amazon charges a higher price, I guess, to make it worth selling. So you're really better off the next time you find yourself in a drugstore, office supply store, any store with a decent sized stationery section will have a white plastic eraser. And but make sure you do get a white plastic eraser. Some of the other erasers will actually leave a residue on your game, and you don't want that. These are latex-free erasers, and they leave no residue whatsoever. So that's enough of all of that. So this is actually a game that I got that needs to be cleaned. Believe it or not, I didn't have a copy of Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt just because I have the two games separately. Sorry. So yeah, so we're going to need to clean this. Hopefully it's dirty so that this becomes a good video. If the game's already clean, then how much fun is that? Not very much. And then at the end, we will test the game out. So now we are going to move over to the desk over here, and we're going to clean this game. So the bit that we're going to be using on this Nintendo cartridge is the 3.8 millimeter bit. I'm just going to be using my standalone bits for that. And this particular cartridge just has 3 screws in it. Some of them have 5, and then like I said, some of them do use a slotted screwdriver. The 3.8 millimeter bit is actually used to open almost all Nintendo cartridges, and that includes the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. Just has the 1 screw in the back. The Super Nintendo has 2 3.8 millimeter security screws right here in the front. The Nintendo 64 has 2 of them right here on the back. And so the one exception that I have Nintendo-wise is the Game Boy Advance, which uses a tri-wing screwdriver. And again, you can get that on Amazon, and I just don't have one. Now, the 4.5 millimeter bit is what you would need for Sega Genesis, most Sega Genesis cartridges. And that has just the 2 screws on the back. Boy, it's a dusty cartridge. And then, interestingly, the Sega Master System doesn't use security bits. It just has 2 Phillips head screws in it, so you just need any old Phillips head screwdriver. We're going to open up this game, clean it with this eraser, and then I am going to go ahead and use some DeoxIT, which once again is completely optional. And here's a Q-tip for that. And then I have an alcohol swab here just for getting the game cleaned up a little bit. All right, now we've got it open, and ooh, this one's nice and dirty. So so that's good. And what's this? There's some crud on it already. How did that happen? Maybe that's soda or something. But I don't know how well it's going to come out on camera there. But I mean, this game is really filthy, disgusting, dirty, which frankly is what I was hoping for, because that way, oh yeah, that's some kind of sticky stuff. So we're actually going to go ahead, since there's a sticky crap on here, and now we're just gonna use the eraser, and we're just gonna literally erase the contacts. So I'm gonna try to leave one side dirty, and then one side is gonna get cleaned, and then hopefully we will be able to see the difference. All right, so that is now completely clean. I pretty much guarantee you that this would work straight out of the box, as it were, if I stuck this in the Nintendo right now. But like I said, you know, it's optional, but you know, I have the DeoxIT, and so I'm going to use it. So the way you'd put on DeoxIT if you choose to buy some of this, like I said, it has a little brush applicator. But so I don't like wipe off the excess off the brush, and that way you're wiping kind of a lot of DeoxIT onto the contacts. And that's plenty. That's why I'm saying, I mean, think of how many times you could do that out of that bottle. And so now we've got the contacts are all, you know, wet with DeoxIT, and now you just use the Q-tip and wipe the contacts off. And of course, the Q-tip itself is going to turn red because the DeoxIT is red. But you know, I don't want to do too good of a job of wiping off the DeoxIT because I want to leave a residue on there, although it, you know, not much. But another nice thing about using DeoxIT is that if you do leave a little bit of a DeoxIT residue on here, then some of that residue is going to end up getting on the contacts of your system, on the 72-pin connector. And so I think that also kind of helps keep the connector sort of cleaned and conditioned. So, and then I don't know if you can really tell on camera, but you can see that there's a little bit of dirt and whatnot on the Q-tip, so that did help to clean it up just a little bit. And I guess what I was going to say about the alcohol and being careful is that if you're going to use something like this to wipe the outside of the case, you want to be really careful using alcohol on labels, because like depending on the strength of the alcohol, you can end up basically wiping the ink off of the label, like wiping away some of the color, and that's not going to look too hot. So for me personally, I think, you know, you don't need something like alcohol to wipe off the outside of your games. What you really mostly just need is like a moistened paper towel. Like just get a paper towel, get it a little bit wet, squeeze the extra water out of it, and just wipe the cartridge off. I only used the alcohol wipe because I already had it in my hand. So this is looking pretty good, looking pretty clean. So now we're just going to go ahead and put the PCB back in. And certainly you could do a better job of cleaning the outside once you've got the game back together, but at this point I can't imagine that we would be taking the game apart again to re-clean the contacts, because they're basically clean as though the game was new at this point. So there's not really much you could do. If it still wouldn't play for some reason, you know, I'd be more inclined to think that you got something wrong with the 72-pin connector on your system. So that's it. That game is now cleaned, and then just as a last step / proof of concept, I suppose, without doing anything else to mess with anything, we're going to take this and go stick it in my Nintendo and just see if it fires up on the first try. All right, so I've got a extra Nintendo set up here. This is kind of a grungy Nintendo that I have that is completely bone stock, so it hasn't had the lockout chip modification done to it, and hasn't even had its 72-pin connector cleaned. So we're going to stick in the game that we just cleaned and fire it up. And you can see that the game doesn't seem to have any graphical glitches. Sorry if it's a little bit overexposed, but yeah, there you go. So playing Nintendo in composite video, mind you, on an old Commodore 1702 is enough to take you back to the old days. So anyway, yeah, this is how to clean your games the CGQ way.